All right. Well, thank you guys very much. I'm going to be presenting through my camera, so if you could stop to share. All right. So hopefully you can see me. If we have problems with the screen, I can do some stuff to cut over, but hopefully we can make this, we can get this up and running. Let's see here. All right. Well, nope, we'll go here. All right. Well, thank you guys very much for welcoming and having me here. My name is Chris Wagner, a Microsoft Data Platform MVP. Um, I work for Rockwell Automation. I'm an analytics architect there. I provide oversight to all of our Power BI developers, which are now 30,000 people or something along those lines. So I've been working inside of the data space for quite a while, helping deliver and build out content. And this is actually a schema and a process that I've been using for uh, a very long time, and I'm very happy to share that with each and every one of you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. If you want, you can find me. The chat is. I think someone posted out my YouTube channel in the chat. I do have a YouTube channel that's out here. I'm trying to get posts out here as often as I can. Do check that out. I also run the Kratos BI. This is the home of the data gods. Frankly, I started this because people keep coming up to me and saying, how the heck do you know all this stuff? And I say, it's because I follow and listen to all of these people, right? All of these people are the ones who teach me and educate me, right? So I figure, I want to have some fun way to bring things forward. So I have an artist that I've hired that I bring in. They help me, put together all these different profiles and do these cartoon videos. And in fact, I even do each week I do a data god of the week, and this week is none other than the man Gregory. He is the brand new data god of the week, the data god of business value. Thank you so much, Greg. You want to give you the floor here for just a minute to tell us about what you do and why and how you do that.
Shucks. Well, Chris, thank you so much for inducting me to the Data God, to the Data God platform. The God of business value is what you were able to bring me into, which I greatly appreciate. I've spent a lot of my career, trying to illuminate the need for just analytics, self-service BI, and just share just the great things that an investment in tools and platforms like Power BI will bring. And so, how can you take technology and business need and bring those two things together and bring business value and build efficiencies? So I'm humbled. I do this out of passion and commitment to both the community and the organizations I get to work with. I love the energy you bring and what you've done with just Kratos BI overall. So thank you for letting me be part of this community with you.
Oh, fantastic. We're super happy to have you. As I said, follow the website, follow me on Twitter, follow me on LinkedIn. Constantly looking for, and highlighting, people like Greg who are out here making a difference every single day. If it wasn't for you, and for people like you, none of us would be able to, do what it is we do. All right. So I am going to go ahead and jump into this. All right. So what is, oh, no. What
What?
is the data god model, right? What are we talking about here? And what I'm talking about when I say the data god model is how do we deliver analytics at scale to enterprise customers, right? And how do we take going from where we are, because some of you who are on this call and some of you who are listening to the recording started working in data and are working with a very small data set, right? How do you go from that small little data set into a data model and an ecosystem that can handle petabytes of data that are live streaming into your models, into your analytics, and
Ótimo.
help
Assim que o
drive
telefone
business
estiver
decisions?
disponível, eu entrego seu
Um,
recado.
so this has been something that I've actually, I've worked on it and done for a long time, right? Like I've worked with data scientists on how do you directly integrate the work data scientists do into the front end analytics that people are using in call centers, in help desks, when you go out in an engagement, when you walk up to a factory floor. How do we take that data science work and make that accessible and consumable and usable by people? That is a huge challenge in order for many people to do this. But this is something that I've been able to do, and we've been able to show that you can do this stuff at scale. All right. So it doesn't matter if you have 5 or if you have 30,000 or if you have 250,000 people. This is how you can start to deliver on those solutions. All right. Now, as I go through the data model or data God schema, we're going to be touching on a lot of best practices as we go. And as always, I'm going to hit on the ones that are most important to me when I talk about these things, but there's no way we can cover all of them because this is way too big of a topic. So I'm going to be trying to highlight some of the people that I look to when it comes to getting more information, getting more content, or understand what's going on out here. Okay. So this is going to be more than just a star schema, right? So it's, we're going to be going over that. We'll start to get you up and running, but we want to, at the end of this, have you be able to look at what we talked about here and say, yeah, I mean, maybe some of the details might be a little fuzzy, but I can see how I can go from an Excel spreadsheet to analytics on top of petabytes of data, whatever I need to have. I can do that, and I can deliver that out to everyone. Okay. Now, we are going to be focusing in on these best practices. Okay. Because we want you to start and work like a pro, right? So even if it's your first day, even if you're just going to get started, I'm going to start at each point talking about what the best practices are around these things. And honestly, I'm hoping that we start to see, some, we have lots of pros in the chat here. Drop in links if I'm missing something, or if I'm not talking about something, or you see, of articles that are relevant to that subject. Drop those in the chat. Happy to cover those, or they want to make sure people understand and get those out as well. But the entire point of the Data God model is that you need to know how to understand all of the rules when it comes to working with data, so that once you've gained mastery of those, you start to be able to break those on demand wherever necessary in order to achieve something more. Okay. If you ever get an opportunity to connect with Phil Seamark does this whole Power BI games thing he's got going on. Uh, that's the data model he has behind that. It's hard to even call it a model. It's configuring Power BI to play games really at that point in time. But he's only able to go to that point and do that because he is a pro and he has mastered these things. So I'm going to be jumping into this, and I'm going to be pointing into the different things. Okay, if you're at home and you're following along and you want to do that, do check out my SQL install guide. It's out. It's out on YouTube. Oh, where did my YouTube hits go? So it's out here. This series, you can just go out, you can watch this. If you want to follow along and use the materials that's available for you, please go ahead and do so. You'll want to make sure that you've run through all of these videos. Oops, no, I'm too big. Right, yeah, there we go. You want to run through all of these, because if you're going to follow along with the Data God model, we have a lot of different data sets that are in there. To get that up and running, you're going to need to have installed SQL Server AdventureWorks 2019 DW. You're going to need to have a whole bunch of views that I've created to go along with it. That's all out available on the website. So all the content and everything I'm going to be showing for you right now is available for you to just take and use. If you need additional help and need additional guidance, I look to Brent Ozar. He is my go-to guy when it comes to SQL stuff. There's a whole bunch of other people that are out there in this space, but he's the data god that I always look to. Okay, a few ground rules or a few pieces of information that we're going to be talking about. So there's some some concepts or topics that I want to make sure that we understand, because I'm going to be breezing through these really quickly. And if you don't get these, it might go really fast for you. Okay. So anytime you see a big purple box, we're going to be talking about one big tables. What's a one big table? I'll go a little bit more into that in just a second. But generally think of those big walls of data that you're very accustomed to using or seeing inside of Excel or Netezza or Teradata or something like that. That's your one big table, okay? Fact table. This is where your actions are. This is at the center of any of your star schemas. This is where everything, any measure that you're taking, it's going to exist inside of a fact table. Dimensions, those go off of the fact table. Those are the points on the star, okay? Those are the descriptive things that describe an employee or describe an address, all right? Then we have conform dimensions. Conform dimensions are what link two stars together. We have security tables. These are what locks down and secures your information, your data. Please make sure that you're really focused in on, there's a difference between data security, which is what you are allowed to see and you're not allowed, you can't see, and experience. Okay, so there may be like Chris Wagner is only allowed to see North America Rockwell information, but that's my security, right? But for an experience, when I go in and look at stuff, I may just see myself and my employees, right? So the two differences there. I want to make sure that we understand that those differences exist. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Then the next thing we're going to be talking about is a calculation group. These are green boxes we're going to be using for how we use measures dynamically and broadly across our organization. Then we do have any object that you see as we go along that has this big red border around it. This is going to be a direct query. Okay, so the Data God model is going to be very specifically attuned to working inside of the tabular engine inside of Microsoft Power BI space. You can extend it. You can do some of these things in other places, but there is absolutely no other engine out there that can provide the analytics necessary to power the Data God model. So some of these topics, some of these terminologies will be specific to the Power BI space, okay? So red box, direct query. Direct query means whatever it is on the back end that you're hitting has to be fast enough for your analytics, or you have to set the right expectations, but we'll get into that, okay? We're going to be going just briefly into joins. There's a whole bunch of different joins that are out there. We're going to be talking about active joins and inactive joins. Both have a very or specific use cases. And then we have the treat as join. This is how you join one table to another without any actual joins. Now, there's some distinctions that you'll want to have when it comes to an active join and a treat as join. Active joins, inactive joins will store memory, or active joins will store those connections inside the Vertipack engine, so they'll be faster than if you build things without a join. So you want to be very careful, especially if you have high cardinality databases. And when I say high cardinality, I'm talking about anything that's really truly north of hang on, sorry about that. North of 130,000 records, that's 130,000. That's when you start to get into high cardinality and performance will begin to suffer. That's when you don't want to be looking at the treat as. And in fact, I think a treat as limits at 100,000 or something like that. But it's a very useful function if you have, or in a number of different places. Okay. Those are the ground rules. Those are the basic things. Now, before we jump into all of this stuff, though, I don't have a thing to. Well, I want you to remember that. So lots of people on this call, I recognize you. We've been talking about working in data for a long time. There's a lot of people that are new to data, especially in Power BI and these tools that these are new concepts to them, and getting up and running can be very difficult for them, right? But we will always want to be open and welcoming to new people working inside of data. If you think about it, and this is something that just like I think about all the time, accounting has been around for 3,000 years. SQL has only been around for 45. Right? That's a drop in the bucket. And you look at accountants go to conventions over and over again to learn more about, how to do the practice of accounting. And that's something that's been around forever. Technology and data is you know, we are so new, we're so young. We need to make sure that we're always open. We're always extending that hand out and that olive branch out to bring new people in, to help them out and understand that we want to help them and take them from where they are to all the things that they could possibly be. So I just please remember that as we go through some of this stuff. Some of it may seem basic. As we go through this, though, I am going to be going through and I'm going to be talking about something that I'm going to go through and do a demo. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about so you can kind of have some understandings around this stuff. Okay. So, first topic. That's the one big table. Okay. This is where people get started, right? It's that big wall of data that you get up and running with. And maybe that's all you need. This is our first topic, and for some of you tuning in, we're going to go over how you work with a one big table really, really fast here, and you're going to think to yourself, "Wow, okay, I'm pretty good." Hopefully, you'll hang on, and we'll keep going though, because honestly, the one big table makes her appearance later, so don't think that this is the only time that we're talking about. Okay. One big tables are hugely popular, especially with data scientists or if you work in IoT in the streaming space. This is going to be something that is something that you're going to be encountering all the time, right? These big sets of data. Now, you need to remember that you want to, if you're working in these spaces, do anything and everything you can to keep this as simple and as slim as you possibly can. Okay. Oh, sorry, Rafi.
Sorry about some of the unmutes, Chris. We're working on it.
All right, all right, all right. But there is a Roach's maxim where we talk about, and we're going to bring this up many times here, right? He's a data guy. If you're not following Matthew Roach at BI Polar, his blog is incredible. Um, do check this out. But one of the big concepts that he talks about inside there is as far upstream as necessary, pushing your transformations as far upstream as necessary, as far downstream as possible. Oh, Roach was here last month. That's awesome. This is really true when it comes to working with one big tables. You're going to find that a lot of the things that we'll talk about in other areas, if you're trying to do that in a one big table, you're going to find a big challenge here. But keep it simple, okay? So if you have this big table, focus in on some sums, focus in on dividing things, but try not to get too complex because you're going to see a whole bunch of different things when it comes to measures and data, and that's just going to get way above. All right. So, all right, let's head over to our data God model, and let's talk about the one big table just quick in person. All right. So if we look at our Data God model, this is out on kratosbi.com. You can go out and download it. So I always like to work with code and work with data whenever possible. Okay. So when we talk about one big table, we are talking about the report employee reseller sales account. So this is if we go over to that and we can look at that inside of our right here. We can go over and look at it. It's a huge wall of text that is available for you. Some of the things we want you to do when you're working with something like this, you want to make sure that you go through and you hide any of the surrogate keys that are out there. These are things that have very little value to you when you're working with this, but it's something that you want to keep and hang on to. Okay, don't get rid of any of those things, but anything that's a key or anything that does not have value, we want you to get rid of. Okay. Then one of the things we want you to do once this thing has been created and is out and it's available, we want you to go through and we want you to create these things called measures. So anytime you have something that's going to summarize a value, like order quantity, we're going to want you to write out, and here, I actually have to go up here to look at this. If I look at reseller sales and I go into my base measures, I can see my order quantity. Come on, play with me now. Really? Why am I not seeing it? What did I do? Oh, okay. Well, whatever. So you want to create a measure on everything that you have, so that it's really easy for you to understand, go and consume that information. Maybe I lost the measures. I don't know. easy either way. I've got a video out on how you create these things. The goal when you're working with one big table, though, is keep it as simple as possible, but do not lose these joins, okay? Because these joins are what you're going to use to start to transition into your first star schema, okay? So next thing, let's talk about getting into your first star schema, okay? Now, basics of the star schema are at the center of your star schema is what's called a fact table. All right. Whoa, that's not what we want to do. Is a fact table. All right. Inside that fact table is where you're going to have all your joins out to your various dimensions. You're going to want to look to ensure that you always do a one-to-many join in these cases. There's a handful of niche cases. Hang on one second here. There's a handful of niche cases where every rule I'm going to say doesn't apply. Okay. And you're going to say, well, Chris, I need to do this or that. Fine. Yep. You need to do those things. Don't forget it. You need to do them. That's fine. Okay. But what I'm saying, when I talk about these rules, this is the 80-20 rule. But in a lot of these cases, what we're really talking about is the 99 1% of the time rule, right? So when it comes to joins, 99 times out of 100, you should be doing one-to-many situations. Okay. All right. Um, Now, a big thing that we want to make sure that we do is on our encoding on these models is we want to make sure that we set our hashes and we set our values, okay, on each of these on each of our fields. Okay, what this is going to really do is it's going to really make sure that our queries and our models perform as absolutely fast as possible. All right. We want to reduce the number of fields that we have. This is especially true inside of our fact table. Our fact table should have nothing but integers in them. Anything that's text should be moving into the outer periphery with very rare exceptions. Make sure that you go through hide all ID fields, hide all base measure fields, right? Like, so if you have a summation of total sales, no one should ever be able to see that from within the model. They should only see that measure. Do everything you can when it comes to monitoring your stuff or building your model not to Snowflake, and make sure that you have everything in folders. Now, again, we're going to go back to the model to do this really quick. So when I look at my first star schema here, all right, I go from my one big table to my star schema. I can see that I've got my reseller sales table here. Now, you know that you've built your fact table right when all of a sudden your fact reseller sales disappears from down here. Like, you're like, where did it go? And it shows up here, right? Once I've built my fact table right and no columns are visible in my fact table and only measures are visible, then you'll see that start to appear up here. Okay. I've got all my dimensions set up. So I've got one to many joins. I've got inactive, active joins, and I've got those set up all around my entire model. Now, you say to yourself, Chris, how am I going to go through and set all of these different I want to set the encoding hints. How the heck do I do that? Well, inside of Power BI, no real way to do this. That's where our best friend, Daniel Odeker, has come along, and he has created Tabular Editor for us. If you're not familiar with Tabular Editor, get familiar with Tabular Editor. This is the place to be. This is the only tool you should be working and building your model out in, with the exception of a handful of things are slightly easier to do inside of Power BI than inside of Tabular Editor. We'll talk on those in just 1 second. This is the place to be. But when it comes to setting your encoding hints, if you look at any of your base attributes in, let's say, a fact table, if we go in and we look at, where did it go? Oh, come on. Oh, there it is, encoding hint. Oh, son of a, look at me. All right, so encoding hint, you don't want it to be a default. You, especially in this case, because we're talking about a date. This is if we look at this, this is formatted as something that's readable and consumable by others. You want to make sure that that's defined as a hash. What that'll do is it'll tell the analysis servers that you're going to be breaking this up and looking at this thing, and you're not going to be adding this up in any way. Amount, on the other hand, you want to go through and you want to set that as a value. Okay. Once that's in place and you're all set and you're happy with that, you hit the little save button. boom, my model has changed inside of Power BI, and I have updated that. Now, it is very easy to go through and in a number of things, right? Like, so I've gone through and I've defined all of these fields that are the base measures that my measures would have come from. I have stuck them in the display folder base measures. Now, it's very easy. If I select all of these, I can go in and I can change this. And now the folder is base measure 1 or back to base measure, whatever. Again, Tabular Editor makes that very easy. Make sure you go through and do that. You want to hide all of these base fields. But this is where it's super important that you go into your encoding hints and you make sure that this gets set to a value, okay? So that all of these things will be added up and the engine will be all set up so that you can blaze through this information as fast as humanly possible. Okay. Super important to go through and do this. I do recommend breaking things up into IDs, base measures, base attributes, at the bare minimum, get those things set up so that it becomes easy for people to navigate them. And then any of your measures, right? This is where we were talking about your measures. You go through and you create them in here. Oh my gosh, what happened to my? Well, someone, namely me, must have not saved his. I was down on my BP best practice
Data
analyzer.
God of presentations is here to foil the day.
Right.
Every time.
Yeah. Come on, my encodings aren't all in, and somehow I have 340 issues again. But okay. Either way, get these set up. You're good to go. This is the foundation for your star schema. Okay. Once you get this thing in place, honestly, if you do this, you're now in like the 90% of a lot of the things when it comes to working with the star schema. There's a lot that you can do out there. Now I'm going to point out a number of people that you should be following and listening to inside this space when it comes to working with star schemas. We have Chris Webb, Chris Webb's BI blog, Casper DeJong, Casper on BI. He's all about Power BI modeling, DAX, and whatnot. Adam and Patrick are a great resource for you. And Brian Grant, I don't know if you guys know Brian Grant. Is Brian Grant here by any chance?
He might be in the background.
Brian, yes.
I'm here. I'm watching.
All right. Yeah. Brian's the man, right? So he's got a whole YouTube series out there. I don't have his. I unfortunately did not grab his link. I gotta get better at that. Brian, if you could post that you have some like a DAX tutorial and some stuff on modeling as well that is just phenomenal. Please post that in the chat for people.
Будь ласка, залиште повідомлення після сигналу.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible for him to appear any place without a hat. That's why he's not on camera right now. But do check these stuff out. I just brushed the surface here because, oh my gosh, we're already 48 minutes in. And I've got 17 hours of more content at this pace. So, okay, we're going to keep going, okay? Next thing we want to talk about, we kind of briefly talked about this, but I want to make sure that we hit on the measures, okay? Now, we want to make sure that we are, we want to make sure that as we work within our tabular model, we want to make sure that we're creating measures that sit on top of our model. Now, again, Roach's maximum comes in here. Your measures should be as simple as possible, right? They should basically be, all of them should start with sum, okay? They start with sum of a value, and I completely removed all of these stupid things, but okay. Actually, no, that's right. You want to fully qualify a field definition, but if you ever reference an actual, if you ever reference a measure, you want to make sure that you're not fully qualifying it. Okay, you want to make sure that you have that all set up, and so that you're just referencing the measure and not the fully qualified value. Okay, I hope that makes sense. All right. My gosh, I am just losing here. All right. We also want to make sure that we keep things as simple as we can, and that any complex DAX that we have to write, that we go out to daxformatter.com and format it first. Okay. If we all get along and we all agree to do that, it'll make our lives so much easier when it comes to reading and supporting complex DAX. Okay. This is super important. Please do this stuff. Now, Again, I am not going to go deep into DAX. I'm going to cover just these basics in here. Make sure you're always using measures, no naked measures. This is super important. Okay. Alberto Ferrari, Marco Russo, they're the guys. They literally wrote like all the books on DAX, right? I mean, I think there are a couple other people out there that have written some books, but they're the guys, right? Get their books, especially. I'd feel bad if I didn't.
DAX patterns.
DAX patterns. This, especially if you're brand new to working with data or working with Power BI, start with DAX patterns. This book really, really helped me get you up and going. The reason I really like DAX patterns, yes, yeah, is because this is the recipe for how you make a cake, right? The definitive guide to DAX is great, but it's like it tells you what an egg is, or what a cup of flour is, or what vanilla is, right? It's nice to know those things. You want to know those things, but the definitive guide or DAX patterns will show you how to actually bake a cake, and how many cups of flour, and how many eggs, and how much vanilla, and how much sugar you need to go in order to deliver on your solution. Okay, so definitively start with DAX patterns. Make sure you have a good start schema, and you're going to be off on a good start. Okay. Now, as you're going to start running and working inside this space, you're going to get to the point where you realize, you're working with business, you're working with people on a regular basis, and things that you have are changing, right? And so you need to make sure that your models are self-describing. Okay. Now, when I say self-describing, I'm not talking about like, hey, it's so obvious when I look at this code what it does. It's let's document it, and let's make sure that it's easily consumable and readable. Okay. So number one thing, I want to make sure that not only do you have a measure that's defined for, or you have a good measure, and your measures are in display folders, but all of your fields, all of your everything that you have inside your model, I want you to have a description in there that provides good business value and understanding so when people work with your model, they know what the stuff is. Now, I completely cheated because this is a demo, and it is time consuming, right? Defining these things, what it is, beyond just this is a little bit of work, but it's one of those things I call this a force multiplier. Okay. Once you do this, now the work you've done becomes usable by more and more and more people. Okay. But as you do this, you want this to become self-documenting beyond just like, okay, hey, people can go into code and they can hover over in tooltips and see what a value is. And because if I go into my Data God model and I were to like pull up a value, it would come through here. But what I'm talking about when it comes to self-documenting is I want you to use like this Data God auto docs that is out there. This is a derivative of a lot of different tools and solutions that are out there. But if we go in and look at this, all this basically does is, where's my parameters? You can point this at any model that's out there, hit refresh, and better yet, you can publish this out. Control this out to the different models that you have inside inside of your organization, and set up so it refreshes every morning at 6 a.m. or every night at 7 after you leave for the day. Okay. In fact, every night at 7 is probably much better because you're done coding, and not a lot of people are doing data refreshes on your Power BI service. So it's probably a good place to go and work and operate with this. This is the work of Michael Kovlowski at Elegant BI. The two Alexes, Alex Powers and Alex Dupler, both of Microsoft employees. They create a lot of the base code for this, as well as Kevin Arnold. He contributed to this as well. But get out there. You can find this out on the Kratos BI website again. It's the model detailer that's out there. Download this, go through, put this in, install this, and frankly, for all of your data models that you have out there, have this up and running so that you can go in and understand how big is your model, right? What are the largest tables that are out there? What are the tables that you need to, maybe look at refactoring the size of your content, right? What columns are too big, right? Where do you have other issues, right? this tool will provide two different resources. Number one, it provides a data dictionary for the people that are working inside your organization, so they can understand what it is they're working with, how these different things interact and relate. And then specifically, this is a big one that I want people to focus in on, which is what are the measure definitions? Because Power BI is very easy for people to get started in. You want to lower that bar as much as possible, and you can do that by helping people see and understand how easy it is to work with these tools, right? So if they go out and they look at a measure and they say internet sales is blah, 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 blah. Oh, all they did to create this is write the most basic of measures, and look at how powerful and cool that is, right? This is an incredibly useful thing for people to make this available so that they can go ahead and start to consume this and use this, right? Um, right now, this is available out on my website again. Where did my website go?
Yeah, what is everybody's asking? What is this tool? This amazing tool?
So you can download this at the Data God Auto Docs. I would do Git. I learned today. I don't know how GitHub works. I'm trying to figure that out, but that's something I need to learn about. But you can go download this. You can use this. It's free. There's nothing. There's no strings attached to this.
Looks like
Again,
a published to web Power BI report to me.
yeah. You can make this available, and frankly, when we go into the Power BI data sets, my big thing is I publish my Data God model out to my data sets and data flows workspace, and then I publish my auto docs with it, and then I make sure that they're both promoted, right? So, and that they're certified, so that people can go out and they know that they can consume this stuff and make that available to them. Okay, I highly recommend you go out and do this stuff. This was, as I said, this was built in conjunction with using Michael Kovlowski's tools out on Elegant EI. Alex Powers, Alex Duplers, they had a GitHub repo that was the basis of this. The Kevin Arnold extended. Kevin Arnold did all of the work on the this bus matrix, and I'll hit on this as well. But honestly, frankly, this is something. The reason I built this is I needed this at work the other day, or like literally yesterday. So I built this out because of that. Because I wanted to start using this more independently, make sure that this is available. So go check this out. You'll want to make sure that you have this available inside your organization. Okay. But now you can start to self document all of your models that are out there. Okay. Before I move on, any other questions about the model, the self-modeling doc tool that's out there?
Is I see George says, is it Vertipack Analyzer or something else?
Yeah, great question. We'll quick go into that. So if I go to home, I go to oh my gosh. I'm not used to working from the abbreviated menu. If I go to transform data, what this basically does is it hits the analysis services database. Come on. Right. So you define your source as your analysis services database. In this case, I've got two parameters, server and DB name, right? It runs this query against it. And we do a little bit of renaming and stuff like that. And it pulls that in, right? So you could do this for each one. Feel free to extend it. I mean, there's some additional columns that are out there. There's more that can be done with this. But it works very well as it is. So it's a great resource that's out there for people that you can just start to use this, right? This is akin to Radicad's Power BI Helper. It's a little bit different though. Similar in nature, just a different swagger, a different take on that. I think Radicad's Helper is great to understand. I've always used it to understand what measures aren't being used in a report. I haven't just used it for documentation, but this is a good thing that I like to use for that.
Yeah. George also is asking, how does this tool compare to Radicad's Power BI Helper?
Yeah, that's what I was comparing.
Sorry.
They're pretty common. Link. I have a link. Come on.
And then another question, does any of this run off Office graph information?
Great question. We'll get into that in just a second.
Awesome.
So spoilers. All right.
Spoilers.
Okay. All right. Yes, the link is out on Kratos BI. Hopefully you can, there's a link. It's down in the corner. Should be, like, as I said, it is on the page. This one is down in the bottom. It's the Data God Auto Docs. Go ahead, grab that guy. All right. Good stuff. Love to hear, if you do something more with it, great. Might publish it as a template to the store. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. Feeling cute. Maybe it'll go out later. I don't know. All right. Security. Now, I have a number of videos that are out there when it comes to security, but there's also some examples of security inside of the Data God model. I want to make sure people understand a variety of different aspects of when it comes to working with security, because we're talking about data in the cloud, right? We want to make sure that it's locked down and that the information that people are consuming and using is appropriate for them to consume and use, right? This is going to become increasingly important for us to understand, especially as the Microsoft O365 fabric becomes more integrated, right? We're seeing, you know, people sharing stuff in Teams chats and messages. We're seeing a tighter integration inside of Excel. Uh, PowerPoint is coming very soon, I understand, right? Like we're just going to see data become available broadly across our organization from a variety of different sources. So making sure that the data that we have inside of our Power BI reports is secured to individuals and secured to what they're supposed to see is becoming increasingly important, because that will start to impact how people are interacting with data all over the place, right? So uh, you could start to build out your reports inside or if you have your certified enterprise data set, you can build that inside a presentation inside of Power BI and be assured that when people are sharing and presenting information out, that person presenting, you know, has, you know, is only able to present what they have access to, right? It's quite great, especially if you think about creating pre-prepared sales decks or you know, board presentations or that type of thing. The flexibility and the what you can do in this situation is really impressive, because you can ensure that, you know, at row level, object level, column level, measure level, that you have security around all of those things inside of Power BI. Okay, again, don't want to just talk about it, or just don't want to just talk about it. Let's go ahead and show that. If we talk about object level security and row level security, inside of Power BI, it's managed inside of your roles. You can do the same thing inside of Tabular Editor. As you go in, you know, the basic thing is like a country role, right? So I've got a role, I've locked this down. Anyone who's in this role can only see access where the country region code is US. Employee role level security, I've got this set up so I've got product level security on my employee table that joins over to it, where employees are only able to see the products that they have necessary access to. Okay. Object level security, on the other hand, is a little different. In this case, we have object level security across all sorts of crazy stuff. So if you have object level security turned on, and let's say you're working in an HR model and you only want people to be able to see a small sliver of content that's out there, it's very, you know, it's easy enough to go through and you know, block people from seeing large swaths of your model, so you don't have to worry about them getting access to anything that they shouldn't have access to. Okay. There's a lot out there on this stuff. I do really want to call out Radicad and Guy in the Cube. They have both have great documentations and programs out there to help people with understanding row level security. Guy in the Cube's row level security program is fantastic. I do highly recommend it, and Radicad has tons of documents on this stuff, super valuable. Please do go out and check this out. Okay. Before I move on to the next topic, any questions on security? I went through that super fast. In fact, frankly, there is another what the heck did I do with it? Oh, I do have another playlist out on my website where I run through all of the different security options really that you can get into in order to do some really complex, crazy things, right? Like if you're trying to do like column level security, a lot of people say you can't do that. It's not true. You totally can do column level security. And in fact, it's available inside the Data God model. If you install if you install all of the views and you pull up the report employee reseller sales DQ query, you will actually find out that there's a handful of columns in here that you will not have access to. Even if you install everything right, you will just not have access to those columns. So it's quite nice. Okay, let's keep going because it's getting late and I think I'm over time. All right, calculation groups, real easy. This is the first thing that we start to talk about. That is a feature only inside of Power BI. So you can go out and you can create your calculation groups for, oh my gosh, where did my calc group go? There we go, time intelligence, right? So I can define all my time intelligence values. So all I have to do is on any measure, if I have selected my calculation group, I will apply this value to it, okay? Marco Russo, Alberto Ferrari have a ton of stuff. You can go out there, you can get this all set up and running there. This stuff's really great. Okay. Gonna keep going, keep going. Type 2 dimensions.
You don't have to hurry too much, Chris. You do have enough time. So don't.
Oh, I do?
Oh, yeah.
You don't know how many slides I have. So
Yeah. Trust me. I mean, we can go till 7 Pacific. So we're good.
okay. All right. Okay. Well, okay, so there's a lot about calculation groups that are out there, super powerful. I just think of any one measure, you can apply all sorts of transactions and write it only one time. So very powerful. It was one of the last big hey, I don't want to get off multi-dimensional models because I have this functionality. Now this is in place. So now, I mean, I don't know what you complain about. Type 2 dimensionality. Okay, so this is a topic that a lot of people, if you read the Kimball methodologies and go through all the different ways of managing type 2 dimensions, you need to be very specific in your approach to type 2 dimension inside of a tabular model. This is especially true when it comes to uh, when it comes to working inside of large data sets, because as I said before, Power BI starts to have some performance issues once you go above 130,000 records. Below 130,000 records, you can do like infinite amounts of like crazy mashups and all have sub-second responses. But it's very easy, especially inside of large organizations and large data sets where you have 1 million customers, you have 50 million customers. Well, if you put slowly changing dimensions, and what a slowly changing dimension or type 2 dimension is, would be something like someone's last name, right? So my last name's Wagner. I've had it my entire life, and I'll probably have it for my entire life. My wife, on the other hand, her last name is Wagner now, but before we got married, it was Morin, right? So her last name changed. In some models and in a lot of schemas, they'd actually have 2 records for her, right? She'd have record 1 where it was Kim Morin, and record 2 it was Kim Wagner. Well, that can run into some real problems, especially if you think about really high cardinality data sets, and you think about potentially 50, 60, 100, 200, 500 columns in it. You start applying type 2 cardinality onto those dimensions, and all of a sudden that that 50 million records becomes 1 trillion records, right? Well, you're going to slow to a crawl with the in a star schema in that situation. So in those cases, what we want you to do is think about either breaking them out and moving that type 2 marker off of the dimension and into the fact table. Okay, so that you join to that fact table, and you can kind of either swap to as like either what is or what was, so that as you build things out, you can manage the content that way. Okay, these slowly changing dimensions. We're going back to Roach's maxim here. This is something you want to push as far upstream as you possibly can to define this. Work with your data engineers, work with the people inside your organization to make sure that you're designing this right and that it's done in an efficient and effective manner. Do not attempt to do all of this stuff inside of Power BI and Power Query. Super powerful tools, but this will get complex. this will become difficult. Make sure that you make sure that you work with your data engineers on how you do that, okay? And it can often be very important to look at, do you need to break it out, or do you need to have some sort of like self-reference inside of there as well? Think of title, right? So my title today is Analytics Architect. My title tomorrow might change to unemployed. If I do a bad job, maybe I won't have a job anymore. I don't know. Probably not, hopefully not. But think about potentially, instead of just having an employee table where title's a field, if tracking that change or looking at what that could be over time or what someone has had over the time, think about maybe it's employee and title inside the employee table, but that's just the current, what's the status today? And then you have a separate dimensional table that's just title, and it changes over time, and you just join in on that table. So work with your data engineers, make sure you model that out appropriately, okay? Now, this is one of the slickest, hottest things that's out there. Honestly, when it comes to making joins between tables, you do it with active, inactive joins. You just drag and drop inside of your Power BI data sets, right? Super easy to do, no problem. Oh, I didn't finish that one. But what do you do if you can't necessarily have a join, right? Maybe there's some sort of table that's in between, or the granularity isn't right, or you have a type 2 row level security issue where you need row level security potentially on this table, and you need to be able to join to a current view and a historical view while maintaining that row level security. Power BI will not allow you to have two active joins at any given time. You could make an inactive join over there, but you'll find that with row level security, it is a hard and fast, like, you ain't breaking through this. That active join that's defined in the database will hold. Okay. But you can get around this by defining row level security on the table, and then using treat as to define your join. And I'll show it to you right up here in my DIM survey product subgroup. Okay, so this will, in my treat as, it will define and it will connect my tables and my models coming from two different directions. Okay. Um, I cannot believe I blew that away. I had a demo of that. All right, a picture of that for you. But basically what it does is it connects along one path for this measure and one path for this other cardinality, or for this other calculation group, which means inside of a given report, I can choose if I want to display values along the product subcategory path, or if I want to display values along the product survey product subcategory path, right? I get to choose which one it joins against, and thus I can drive my results and control what I'm seeing inside of here. If I don't need row level security, this is a great way to drive an experience for people, okay? Frankly, this is one of the most powerful things I've seen out there. I highly recommend, give this a shot, check this out, okay? All right. Now we are at the 25% mark. We're just now, so that's your basics, right? So that's your star schema. We know that there's a whole bunch of more stuff out there. Get the book. If you don't have star schema, get this. This will go through a whole, I mean, like, I only talked for 40 minutes, right? There's clearly more than that here, right? So these are the basics that are really important for you to know and get up and running. Maybe I even missed some stuff, so check out the book, all right? But no one came here just for that, right? Uh, uh, um, you guys are all here for the Data God schema, all right? Like this. Hang on, I got my slides out of order here. Hold on one second.
I love that picture of you, by the way. I'm shaking in my space boots.
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. This is, hold on. No, I'm not wrong. I'm right. This is, yes. This is the galaxy schema. All right. We'll get to the Data God schema in just a second here. Okay. So we've had 1 star. We've done the 1 star already, right? Now we're going to go on to star number 2, right? So as we start to bring fact tables and bring stars together, that's when we start to call this a galaxy schema, right? So now we have really the same things existed as before, right? So, you know, if I look, same thing, right? But now we have some subtle differences here, okay? We still have our dimensions. We still have our security measures, fact tables, calculation groups, right? All of these things still exist, but now we have something new here, and that is the conform dimension, okay? This is what bridges those worlds. So it goes from 1 star to another, right? Defining and making sure you have the absolute most number of conform dimensions is what's going to make sure that that it's easy for people to build out measures from sales facts to reseller sales facts, right? So that these things line up and match. Because what will happen when with a conform dimension is they'll slice, dice, interact with each other very nicely, and everything will look super cool. All right. I mean, everything will interact on your dashboard. It'll be great. What happens though, if you use a measure from a fact table and a dimension from a different fact table, is that measure won't change. It will have no idea how to go from this measure through one of these joins, right, all the way over to here, unless you throw in some weird treat as, and that's another example for what you do a treat as, but don't do a ton of those. So your big goal when you build out a model is you want to make sure you maximize as many of these conform dimensions as possible. Okay, I don't care how many product systems you have. You work with your data engineers and you get to one product table. Okay, I don't care, right? Like I don't care how different they are. Every product has a name. Every product has a price. Every product has a cost, right? Like every product has a description, right? That get to one product table. Same thing with employee. You only have one employee table. You only have one customer table, right? You only have one date table. All right. Because time is a consistent. Time runs through everything, and everyone will expect time to slice consistently everywhere. And in fact, this is starting to move off of a strong recommendation, or like this is a best practice, to I'm moving to mandatory. You will only use one date table inside of your models, and you will join them. By using. Come on now, Chris, get your act together. You're going to join them by using a conversion table. Okay, so you're going to use your order date type table. Right, so if I look at my star schema here and I add in another one of my facts and I bring that together, what I saw here is we saw all of these values, right? Here are all of the conform dimensions to these two fact tables, right? So dim currency, that joins between them. Sales territory, dim employee does not. Okay, what do you know? But product does. So the only guy here that is not a conform dimension is my dim employee. But my date dimension table, I've got one date table that's going to join by the same thing in each case. It's going to join by date key and order date key. That's my primary driver. But I'm also going to come along and I'm going to use, where did it go? My order date type key. Okay. What my order date type key will do, and use some creative DAX expressions, it will allow you to select between the different values and rotate what the values are for. Okay. So once it gets in place, you can still use one date dimension, and then you can just use your order date type table to structure that, to move that data around and choose which dates you're going through from the different places. Okay, this is super important. If you need role-playing date dimensions, you're saying, Chris, I've got to have them. I have to have role-playing date dimensions inside my model. It's very important. I need to compare ship date versus order date. It's critical to what we need. We're not putting in our Galaxy model. We're putting it in our proxy model, and it's going to be a report-specific thing. Okay, so we add that in there, and we call it a day. All right. It's a perfect dimension. The date dimension is a perfect dimension for low cardinality, easy to use, easy to consume, easy to make those joins available to people, right? So that they can join between them and make sure that inside that report, it's consistent and make it easy to work and operate. All right. So, what were we talking about? Conform dimensions. Okay, so these are conform dimensions. Maximize it. If you want to make sure that you communicate it out, that's where this measure comes in, because people are not going to know, especially as they look at something that dim employee was not connected there. But if I go over here, I can easily go in and say, okay, my dim employee, that I can work with my reseller sales and my sales quota and my report employee reseller sales. These are the only tables I can use and work with my dim employee table. Anything else, and it doesn't have a join, it's no good. All right. So super important to do your documentation, super important to make sure that you have as many conform dimensions as possible, because otherwise it's going to be a bad time. All right. Going to keep going. Perspectives. All right. Now, perspectives become increasingly important as we look at larger and larger models, because it becomes more and more difficult for people to work and consume that information when it's not focused in on them. Okay, what a perspective, and frankly, the two guys that you need to know for perspectives, at least in my book, again, Michael Kowalski, Daniel Oedeker. If there's someone else out there who does a lot of perspectives, let me know. I'd love to hear about that. These are something that, again, can't be defined inside the Power BI service, but they can be defined inside of Tabular Editor. Now, you can create a fun little script out there. You can create your perspectives editor. And thank you for Michael Kowalski for that. You pop that guy up. And here we go. Now we can create a new perspective. I'm going to call this one Portland. And Portland, you get access to, what we said, employee, and what were the tables that employee had a dimension to? Where did my report go? Employee was reseller sales and sales quota. Fact reseller sales, fact sales quota. Create perspective, and now I've got my Portland perspective out inside my model. I hit save, and that's now available inside my model. Okay. Now, if I'm doing some employee-based work, I know, and probably Portland's a bad example. Let me rerun this one again, because it's not in Portland, right? Like, really, it's Portland. It's the employee one, right? So, I can't. Oh, okay. Let's start over. You can't rename it here. Oh, I can rename it here, though, I bet. Right here. All right. So now I've got my employee perspective. I'm good to go. And I can go ahead and if I'm ever doing employee analysis, I can go from that perspective and know what it works and what doesn't work on my data set. Okay. Big note, perspectives are not security. Don't create, a security that's like not HR information, right? And then think that people won't be able to have access to that stuff. This is going to be that will not work. They'll still be able to access that content. Okay, it's security through obscurity. So if there's some stuff that you just don't want people to focus in on, but you don't care if they were to get access to it, this works, right? Personally, I wish they did at least a modicum level of security. Like if we could publish a Power BI data set, lock it to a perspective, and then only allow people to have access to that data set that was locked to that perspective. That'd be nice. That would be enough security for, not for like healthcare, but that'd be enough security for a lot of situations. So I would love to see that get added into the service. So if anyone knows anyone at Microsoft, that'd be a great feature to ask for. Again, another thing that's out there. Okay. Now, those are the basics. Star schema, galaxy schema, and now here's what everyone's here's what you're here for. We're going to start to talk about how do we extend from the basics that we've just talked about and into something that's much more than what we had before. So this is the Data God schema. Frankly, I am jacked up and excited to be talking about this with you guys. Yeah, this is the big one. Uh-huh. All right.
That's what we all came for.
All right, let's go. Okay, the Data God model. So this starts to extend upon everything that we've just talked about and adds in all sorts of additional elements that would traditionally be like all sorts of taboo inside of a star schema and inside of your classic, like who's this guy? Christopher Abramson. I don't know Christopher Abramson, but I would imagine he's about. Yep. There we go. I don't know. He's gonna roll over in his grave if he's dead. Hopefully he's not dead. Hopefully he's alive. But he's not gonna be super thrilled with this stuff. But I guarantee you, this stuff is super important in being successful here. Okay, and we're gonna ground us in something that we know quite a bit about. Okay, and we already talked about this. All right, and that's the one big table. All right, now we've done the star schema. We've got these things up and running. Uh, there are times where we might want to use the one big table alongside of our star schema, right? So, maybe you have a super high cardinality detail report where the joins are super expensive between them. Where you've got okay, we talked about 130,000 records on a join is no problem, but you know what? Yeah, you got a customer table that's got 50 million joins, and you've got a partners table that's got 15 million joins in it, and you've got a clients list that's 150 million, and they all come together and they start to do some weird type 2, type 3, type 9 project X type join stuff together that you just frankly you throw your hands up when you think about how the hell would you even start to model that inside of Power BI. Well, again, we're going to follow Roach's maxim: push that crap, push that garbage upstream as much as you possibly can. Do that crazy compute inside of Databricks or in Synapse or wherever, where you have some scalable compute thing to mash all that stuff up together. Bring that up, flatten that out into a table that's ready for presentation, right? So for that grid that's highly detailed and it's got all this information into it, add this in and then use what we just learned, right? What are we going to join this to our model with? We're going to join it with our conforming dimensions, right? So inside of our flat table, we're going to make sure that we have all of our conforming dimensions that we're going to want to interact with this flat table on inside of our one big table, right? So remember way at the beginning of the presentation where I said, don't get rid of those keys, leave them in, just hide them, right? We want to slim down on records. We don't want to have a lot of stuff inside the OBT. It's real easy for that to get too big and not be able to fit in memory. So like big caution here, but you need to make sure you have those surrogate keys inside there so you can join those against your conforming dimensions to your various other models. So as people interact with it, this is going to move as relatively fast as it possibly can. Okay. Now, again, not an everyday type of thing, right? And maybe inside your world, you're going to build a model that's 2 non-conforming dimensions, a couple facts, 10 conforming dimensions, and one of these OBTs, right? Because you've got a grid that you've got to publish all the time, and you're not making your view SLAs on it. Okay, this is actually highly effective. Okay, please think about this. Try this out. As I said, make sure that you get these things up and running and conformed. I do have those set together inside of our data model. If we go and we look and we hit on add related tables, now we've just seen here are all the conformed dimensions that I have against my OBT table, right? So now I can go ahead and if I'm building a report, I know that I can use all of these dimensions inside of my report and still be able to interact with my OBT report. Okay. So my one big table. All right. This is really helpful in getting people up and running and making these things work. Okay. Next. If you guys aren't using this, like I am so pumped up and excited about this. The aggregations that you can do inside of Power BI just knock my socks off of. Okay. And you say like, hey, Chris, okay, we're always aggregating data inside of Power BI. It's literally what we do. And I say, I know, but wait, we can do aggregations in our models, okay? And frankly, like the guys who like own this, who like mic drop, Christian Wade, Phil Seamark, Oh, did I say French toast? Sorry. The guys who really own this stuff, they're the masters. They're the ones who Christian Wade and his team, they made this stuff work. Phil C. Mark, he's got a series of blog articles out there. It's just incredible. What you do, and notice, same thing, right? So we got my fact table. I have my slice of my fact table that's in memory. And actually, this is my aggregation, right? So instead of having that like super granular detail that joins to like my like those high cardinality like dimensions and whatnot, uh, I'm going to drop that off and I'm going to aggregate this up at a higher level, right? And then I'm going to turn on my aggregations and I'm going to set this up so that this portion of the fact table is in direct query back. Actually, it's not even portion. It's overlapping, right? So it's the detail of that fact table is back against that the detail table in the engine, and it'll then join to all of my tables inside or all of my conforming dimensions inside of my model, just like everything else, right? Big thing of note is that all of your conforming dimensions have to be set in dual mode, okay? So that they have to be able to be both consumed and used inside of the service, inside of Power BI, as also inside the database that's out there, okay? It is, frankly, the speed and the compression that you can get when it comes to working with your models is just out of this world. Where's my ag? I have an ag on Fact Internet Sales. Oh, right here. This is my ag one. So Fact Internet Sales, I define this out. This is my direct query, and you can see this by this double arrow, right? So it's going back and forth. This is my Fact Internet Sales. This is my aggregate. This is in memory, right? You can see the little database here, right? This is brought in. Inside Power BI, super easy to go and create. All you do is click on these little ellipses and then click on Manage Aggregations, okay? There we go. Now you're going to go through and you're going to define how all of these things roll up, right? Oh, I have a data type issue here. Wow, this is new. They didn't used to do that. That was a pain in the ass to figure that out before. Oh man, I'm cursing tonight. I'm sorry. Yeah, so making sure you have the right data types on this stuff as you're going through. So your order quantity and order quantity need to be the same between the different tables. You want to say, are you counting them? Are you your group bys are going to be your conform dimensions. Your sums are going to be what adds things up. This is super valuable and helpful. You get that all set up. You can do that very easily here. You can also do it inside of Tabular Editor. If you go in and you look at your tables, and I go and I look at my backed internet sales. So this is where my table is defined. This is where my aggregation is defined. And if I look at my aggregations here, I can go in and I can see that um, all of my tables have an alternative of settings set, or as each of my files are, right? So if I look, I can see that this is an alternative of the factor net sales carrier tracking number, and the alternative, the summation is set to count, okay? As I go through, I can see that same thing, those same metrics are set in each one of them. Now, if I recall, I had an order quantity data type issue where all of a sudden I have a floating point here. And if I go up and I look at my base measures and go to my order quantity, oh, I've got an int 64 here, right? So let's go through, change that puppy, save that puppy, compress. Now let's go back here and look at manage aggregations. And now my error's gone, right? It's almost like I did that on purpose so I could show you how to fix an error. Um, yeah, that's it. I did that on purpose. Um, but super powerful. Now I've got tons of fast memory in, or I've got access to in-memory data. So if I'm doing aggregations, I'm doing visuals, I'm doing anything that breaks out across these the group by dimensions, it's going to be super fast and be able to give me information right away. Anything that goes further back is going to hit the source system and provide information that way. Now, Some things to be aware of there is that, you know, you have to be very careful in your DAX measures. Anything that doesn't, you know, joins to a conform dimension that's not set in your aggregate, or anything that forces you to go back to this without an alternative field defined for, like if customer key is right here. Where's the key that's not? Order date key is to, I forget which one I didn't bring over, but I don't know. We'll pretend sales day territory key or sales territory key isn't here. If that wasn't there and I had a measure that was based upon sales territory, it would always end up going back to that direct query on the detail table, and so you won't end up. It'll always be slow as it goes back and forth. Okay, this is super important. Now, Amber has a great question about PPU or PPC. Premium per PPC, premium per capacity. This feature is available to pro users. You do not need to have premium per user to do this. And in fact, Tabular Editor 2.0 is free. If you're modifying a model in memory, you don't need to have PPU or premium per capacity to use these tools. You can go ahead and use them. I will note that this tool, presently, it's configured to use either, or it's, if you want to run it in the service, as I showed you with the edit parameters and then pointing to the service, this uses the XMLA endpoints. You would need to have premium per user or premium per capacity set up in order to set this up, but you can. If you wanted, you can use an external tool called DAX Studio. Fire that puppy up. This will give you a copy of the connection strings to the model that you're on. So I'm running on localhost. And where the heck is my database? Is Data God level 2. I could use this information to put into those variables inside of these parameters here. Right, I could paste these in here, and this would sync, and I could publish this in conjunction with my report. So you can use this even if it's not pro. You just wouldn't be able to refresh it automatically. Okay. But that's aggregations. That's documentation there. Okay, gotta keep going because I got a lot more stuff here. All right. Now we're going to start to get into the composite model. Well, and we kind of dabbled on it before, but now we're really getting into the composite model. And this is where we start to extend beyond what you keep in, mostly in memory. And this is where you start to go to doing a direct query against your source. Again, because you're doing a direct query, any conform dimensions that you're connecting to, you want to make sure that you have them set up in dual mode. What the engine ends up doing with this is it will take whatever values or slicers that you're interacting with or that you're building your content with, and it'll actually bundle it up into a SQL query that will then be sent back to your source system and then send that information back to you. You say, "Gee, Chris, why do you have the a direct query on a one big table, and why aren't you doing more of the fact dimension stuff?" Say, that's a great question. The reason for that is, frankly, I don't think you have a lot of value in doing the direct query in building out a model. And I would say if you're building a model just in and of itself, you want to focus primarily on this being in memory. It'll give you the absolute most functionality, the best performance for your users. And this will straight up work absolutely the best. There's a whole bunch of features and functionality that you don't get if you're using direct query. Now, but you say, but I have petabytes of data. I can't possibly hold that all in memory. I say, you're right. That's why we have direct query. That's why we talk about how we would do this or use this composite or aggregations to do this, or use a composite model to run that query back against that backend source. This is where we start to, again, go back to the Matthew Roach's principle of pushing those transformations as far upstream, do those combinations as much as you possibly can. So whatever query is going to be run against that is as simplified as possible so that the speed and what's being sent back to the users is as fast as it possibly can be. Okay. This is the best way to get a whole bunch of performance out of your content. Do try that stuff out. Okay, so we got that. Yeah, and then your next option, and what the hell, I didn't do this right. Okay, screw the other side out. We're just going to go on to this one, because I don't have my notes right there. The next thing that we want to talk about is the hybrid table. Okay, so you can have you can leverage a table that is both in memory and a table that is direct query against the source, right? And it all gets into how you're partitioning that table and getting that set up. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to pop over. I'm going to show you. This also plays with how you would do incremental refresh. Okay, so if we go into our model and we go in and we look at incremental refresh here, can I do it on a different table? This is set up someplace. Sorry. Maybe no, I did that. Factory seller sales. There we go. If we go in and we go to incremental refresh, here is where we can start to set up how things are running. And this is how you can establish your real-time data. So you have data that's set up in memory, and then this real-time, you can also think of this as direct query, right? It's just going back against the source, and it'll, the engine itself knows how to pull that in and just pull the appropriate piece of this, right? So as you start to pull stuff in, as you partition it out, some data will be in memory, some of it will be real time. Now, if you're looking for some examples for how you can do this, frankly, Christian Wade and Josh Kaplan have done a lot of stuff in this space. I also think I saw Guy in the Cube had a great video on some different ways to work and operate inside this space. Do check it out. This is something that's very important as you start to look at these larger and larger pieces of data that you can make this more accessible and usable, right? So you have that combination of in-memory current period and then historical, lots of old stuff, okay? Now, this next topic, I am watching, right? Those big tables are a big deal. Those are hard to work with, but we're now getting into proxy models, and these proxy models, we've got to get these things set up right. You cannot abuse this, okay? We talked about like star schema is going to take on 90% of the work that you do. Galaxy schema is going to take over like the other, like 99% of what you do. Now we're starting to get into that 1% space with the one big tables. This should become a much more fractional or selective use case for when we start to get into using proxy models. Okay. I want to keep an eye on you guys on this stuff. This can get all sorts of tricky. Okay. Now, when we start talking about working with proxy models, this is the one thing that is not, I do not have this included inside of the data set that you can download this because frankly, every time I've attempted to share a PBX file that has a proxy model in it, if you're not inside the same organization, it dies. I don't know if that's I'm just doing something wrong there or not, but be aware of that. Be careful with this, okay? This is something that sounds super appealing and sounds like it's going to be something that you want to take advantage of. I'm just throwing out some big caution flags around this guy, but it offers a lot of potential inside of here for some of the things that you can do. And I'm going to call out one specific one, a business use case on this, because I think it's important to understand how you could leverage this. The best use case, or one of the best use cases I know for a proxy model, a true proxy model, is to look at if you've built out a Power BI goals experience, you'll know that a Power BI goals starts to create snapshots of values across time. If you build out your snapshots appropriately and the data model that's built from behind that, and you're very strategic in how you build that out, you can then tie this proxy model of goals back into your underlying models, and you can start to see those goals over time stretching out and combining with your analytics that you're building out your reports on. Some big cautions here. Number one, I would highly recommend, if you follow this approach, make sure that your proxy model is built off of your model, right? So that it's driving metrics that are coming from your exact same model. That'll ensure that any surrogate keys are being created, any like names are in use, or any of the weird things you're going to have to do to make these joins work. It works as good and as easy as possible. Okay. Again, a lot of stuff in the Data God space or Data God model space gets into like, you got to know what you're doing or you're going to burn yourself with this power. Okay. So it is a fantastic way to get up and running inside of here. I do recommend you give this one a shot. Okay. It's a great use case. Next, next use case inside of the Data God model is the for streaming IoT data, and this is something that we talked about just earlier. Rockwell Automation, we use we produce a metric ton of IoT data. We make the little electrical switches that drive all the factories that are not all, but like it's like 30-40% or whatever it is our market share is. We make all of the IoT data, just constantly. There's petabytes of that stuff being generated on a day in, day out basis, right? And how do you track what's going on a factory room floor? It's IoT data. How do you know what's going on or potentially wrong inside your factory? It's IoT data. How do you mash up that IoT streaming data with your inventory data? Well, now that's a challenge that's always been hard for people to manage. Now you can leverage IoT data as a separate proxy data set where you push the data in and you've got that streaming in one data set. You manage that separately, but then by establishing that as a proxy model into your existing model, you can then do analytics and reporting on top of that can help you line up and identify, hey, we are detecting issues and variances inside of our IoT streaming data on this type of a device. Okay, I join that into my device. I look at my fact table around inventory levels, and I can see that, oh no, I have nothing in stock, or I'm running low below my minimum threshold, or the device running will put me below the minimal threshold that we would normally order on. So I should go ahead and place an order for that product, even though it hasn't failed yet, and even though my inventory levels haven't fallen below that level yet. I can now say that I'm about to, or I'm going to be having these issues, place that order. Okay. If you know anything about factories, a factory going down is millions of dollars a day in revenue. Be able to identify where you're going to have issues, and then be able to connect that issue with someone in the business who can actually take action is incredibly powerful. All right. We're going to continue on in the same vein, and this is where we can also start to connect in with Python, Spark notebooks, anything where we can start to, do sort of crazy stuff. If you've worked with these experiences inside of Power BI, they work really well in isolated spaces, but they lose some of the flavor when it comes to that integration. Well, again, this is where the concepts of that we've learned as we talked about the conform dimensions working within our Power BI Data God model allows us to work and define these data sets ancillarily inside of these other spaces. And as long as we're smart and strategic and we pull forward the appropriate conforming dimensions, we can make these things work and we can make these things tie out. All right. And then last, but actually not last, but not least, the last kind of item I'm going to cover inside here, because I think you can kind of see where this is going, is if you're using Databricks out there, and I know many of you are using Databricks, this is a fantastic way to start to link together what's going on inside your lower environments with your bronze, silver, and gold environments, with what you're doing inside your analytics, what you're doing inside of other spaces, especially when it comes to working with data validations, understanding where you have an issue in the bronze layer that you're tracing through into the silver or gold layer. This is a fantastic mechanism to help you bring this through and make that available. Yeah, and it gives you a direct connection into the data lake and so on. Okay, and all of this is to say, this is fantastic, but we have something else. The reality is, a lot of these concepts individually is something that we've worked with, and I've just now started to like talk about the Data God model and making that available, and like, hey, you know what? You should start to work with this stuff. You should give these things a chance. Look at how you can combine them together. And the reality is, like, that's not a new concept or idea, and in fact, that's kind of what Synapse is, right? So Synapse really starts to mesh all these concepts together, to start to bring together the concepts of like a fully modeled experience in with data scientists, in with all these different types of push data sets, in with IoT data, in with data engineering, in with data science, and so while these things are getting started, while I laid out how you can use them now, really, this is the good groundworks for what you're going to be doing 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now as we start to do more and more with Synapse. Okay. So, and with that is the Data God schema. That's the Data God model. All those resources are available on my website. I apologize. That took, well, that wasn't 17 hours. I think I'm under that line, so that's better. So
let's just give Chris a round of applause for that amazing compilation. Seriously. Woo! Let's go.
Yeah.